Welcome to the show. This is Jane Hoffman with Blog Talk Radio. Tonight's episode is going to deal with the Iranian insurgency, and I'm waiting for my co-host to call in. I am going to play a video after I describe a few incidents. The first issue is that these protests have been going on for a couple of weeks. In the city of Najafabad, one police officer was killed and 3 more were injured. These protests have escalated quickly. Now, President Rouhani said that it's okay to criticize the economic state, but it's not okay to express violence through killing, looting, or fire. 10 years ago, when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had a second election, there were protests that he cheated or bluffed winning for the second election. Since then, it's been about 10 years since there's been a major uprising. The crowd is very dissatisfied with Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of the mullahs. His hometown is Mashhad. It's in the southern part by the Gulf, and that's where the protests started. There is broad discontent with the economic situation there. Unemployment has raised up 12%. The government controls about 50 to 60% of the economy. They don't control all of it, but the people are strongly dissatisfied. They can't even get enough to eat at times. And for example, because of the inflation rate, the prices of eggs have doubled or tripled. So in their everyday life, they're experiencing a lot of stress. The long-term effect of the sanctions has affected people in everyday life. Now, I just want to briefly do an overview again before I cut to the video. 1 police officer has been killed. 12 people have died across the country in different situations. stations and military posts have been sabotaged by civilians, and there are no protests today, and you'll find out why when you listen to this PBS segment.
For more on the latest in Iran, I spoke a short while ago with Thomas Erdbrink of the New York Times, who leads Iran, and I begin by asking you to describe the scene today.
So I was out in the streets of Tehran today, like many other people who were walking the pavement.
I'm going to stop it. I'm not sure about the audio quality, and Ben is on the line. Now, John Yoder will be calling in tonight, as well as Don. I just want to do a recap quick for Ben. We are discussing two topics tonight. We're discussing the provoke suicides in Utah and Nevada by the federal agents in the Bundy case. And we're also discussing the nature of the Iranian protests, which are rather vague right now, but they're aggressive. There's young people out there attacking police. They've set fires. They broke into a central bank, almost, like pretty much looting. The social media websites have been blocked. Today there were no protests as reported by PBS and Al Jazeera because of police and riot gear. Very little of it has to do with international politics. A lot of it has to do with just the basic discontent of the economy. The two main people that people are angry at is the Ayatollah Khamenei, who comes out of the land of Mashhad, which is a southern area by the Persian Gulf, and they're also just upset with the overall running of the economy. With that, I'll bring in Ben. Did you hear me okay, Ben?
Yeah, the video or audio was really bad, though.
Well, the problem was John kept texting me during it, and I had to pull it away. I pulled it away from the speaker because he's being rather juvenile tonight with his behaviors. And I'll just leave it at that. So
Okay.
He's still obsessed with us guessing what his occupation is, and he wants to turn it into like a Jeopardy contest or something. So I hope you can hear me okay now. My phone was acting up a little bit earlier. Since it's
fine.
just you and me on the line right now, could we start with the Bundy case? Because I did watch all of those videos.
Yeah, sure. Did you have anything to say about anything first?
I guess I feel like the Washington State representative, whose name I'm trying to obtain from the video, I feel like he's maybe sticking his neck out a little too far, because there could be some retribution by him sticking his neck out too far. Yeah, and saying all those things loudly on the air.
Well, do you think it should be quiet?
No, but since those police officers or federal agents provoke people into making statements about their family and possibly even try to provoke, I heard something in the video about them not liking Mormons, and they were trying to get people to try to commit suicide, and that part to me was a little bit confusing. If you could clarify some of the facts.
Yeah. I don't know if provoking people to commit suicide was the problem, was the intention, but to ruin them was. One of them
like
was
to ruin their reputation and their integrity?
Everything about them. Ruin their business, their career, drain their account, basically just ruin them. One of them was, the last name was Red, with 2 Ds, and apparently there was an undercover sting operation called Operation Cerberus, and they used somebody
Cerberus?
who was, yeah, and you can't find very much about it online. Most of it is like, since they use words like that, then it brings up things from movies like the X-Men and stuff like that. But there were articles written about it, and Dan Love was the special agent in charge. And there was a sting operation. They used a guy that was pretty much down on his luck to go in undercover and be an informant and try and make these things happen. Well, they busted this doctor for having a bead, an Indian bead, and they said that the bead's value was $1,000, so they could make it a felony. After this went on and on until he was basically, his life was destroyed, and after all this, he ended up committing suicide, and the family had the bead appraised at $75. So all this was basically ramped up to make it sound like he was trading illegal Indian artifacts when all he had was one bead, and he was like proud that he had it. It wasn't like he was hiding it. And I know there was 2 more that committed suicide in this operation, but that was the only name that I could remember. And Dan Love was in charge of that. Dan Love was also in charge of the Bundy operation. And what's even weirder is that Dan Love got in trouble for his actions. I guess law enforcement that talked to him said he was cocky, he was power hungry, he was rude. And Greg Bretzing was, he basically saved him by giving a good report about Love. And he happened to be the guy that ran the operations in Oregon, because he used to be from Utah, and then he moved over, and he was the one that basically he authorized the illegal roadblock that ended up where Lavoy Finicum was killed.
Yeah, it took me like 5 minutes to find the video. I was trying to find the name of the state representative he's been making all these statements public on his Facebook page.
Yeah, Matt Shea.
Yeah, Matt Shea. That's the name I was looking for. So I'm glad he's pretty involved with it. But I do kind of like the emotional mixture of kind of like a citizen uprising, plus the woman who is coordinating the exposure. I mean, it's kind of like a groundswell movement. Like, you know, like people really care about how they're being affected by these behaviors.
Right.
By these federal agents, I mean.
Right, and the other,
right?
the main news agencies have like such a spin that it's these smaller ones that actually do the work. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of work to put some spin on. It takes a lot of work to actually make the connections and find out who all these people are and how they're connected between different states, different operations. They've basically been following these people around. And
I'm just wondering, do they really feel like they have to resort to that type of the federal agents to that type of behavior to get what they want?
Well, I'd like to know who hired Dan Love, because obviously there was problems with his attitude, with his authority, his abuse of his position. There's people that say he might have been Special Forces. There was rumors going around that he was a Green Beret, and I read a blog by Special Forces guys that said this guy cannot be, there's no way he's a Green Beret. He just doesn't have the demeanor. He wouldn't make it. And so people don't even know where this guy came from. So who would give this guy authority? It's like,
well, either way, with the delicate nature of the whole Bundy case, it just seems like they're using backstabbing methods, for lack of a better explanation, to like a roundabout way to be effective in convicting these people. Instead of just being straightforward, they're doing scandalous things behind people's backs.
Right, but the problem is that there's no accountability for our tax money. They're spending millions and millions of dollars on these covert operations, and when they have a problem with a ranch family, like they're dropping like flies. I mean, these old homestead ranches are dropping off the map left and right, and the last few presidents have been, especially Obama, if there's a problem, they would just, designate 500 acres here or there or 1,000 or more and make it some kind of a monument, and that gives total control to the federal government. So using all of the entities under the Department of Interior, whether it's EPA or they can designate pieces of land and make them federal for almost any reason. And that's the whole point of bringing it to court, is saying, is this constitutional? The BLM should not be a military force. Neither should any of the other federal land managing companies.
I was trying to look up a statistic. At the beginning of one of the videos, I just confirmed too that the BIA, do you know what that is? The Bureau of Internal Affairs. the Bureau of Land Management has approximately 8,000 employees, and the Bureau of Internal Affairs has approximately 4,000 employees. Do you think that is excessive in managing our open lands?
Yeah, it's excessive, especially since they're not needed. Everything
Right.
they do
It
can
has
be done.
gone down. It has gone down. In 2003 there was 9,900 Bureau of Land Management employees, and 10 years later in 2013 there was 8,100. So it has decreased in the last 10 years, but it's still probably too much.
I think it should be 0. The Bureau of Land Management shouldn't exist outside of DC. I just don't see a reason for them. Everything that they do can be
Except
done
for
at the state level.
in the case of like having an overseer to manage fires and stuff like that, like
Really
things that really matter.
You're breaking up.
By the way, John Yoder's on the line, and we can quickly inject the trivia game. So you have to take 3 guesses to where John might be working, and the only clue that he's been giving us, and John, I'm not going to pull you in until Ben makes his guesses. The only clue that he's given us is that he has to be available at all times for 24 hours. However, he gave me a clue tonight that they closed at 9 p.m. tonight, so I'm beginning to doubt my suspicions on my original guess.
Wow.
Do you have any clue at all?
I guess my first guess would be a hospital. My second guess would be a living community of some sort.
I have 2 guesses. My first guess is to be a personal assistant, like for either an elderly person or special needs, or even a celebrity who they want them available 24 hours. My second guess would be like to be a production assistant on a movie set, and my third guess would be a personal trainer in a gym. So with that, I'm going to pull him in, but I know more about his background than you do. John, are we getting warmer?
Not really, but that's all right. Basically, 0 on all the answers. It is a retail kind of job.
Oh.
So you work at TJ Maxx?
No, and I think just about everyone goes there or has gone there.
Well, it's either a grocery store or Home Depot.
Walmart.
Or Walgreens.
Someone's getting very warm.
Walgreens, Walmart, Home Depot, Target.
No, and no.
Vons.
And no, warmer.
Trader Joe's.
Nope.
Well, this isn't really fair to Ben because he doesn't know your region at all. Like, he doesn't know what stores are in Santa Monica.
I'll make it real easy. It's a number.
Big 5 Sporting Goods or Big Lots?
Bigger number than that.
I have no clue.
Wow.
I'm probably the most non-retail person on the planet. I hate shopping.
Well, somewhere between
Forever 21. Forever 21.
Somewhere between Vons or Ralph's, there's got to be some place that has a number.
I don't know of a grocery store with a number.
It's a number higher than 7.
Okay, Ben, you talk while I look it up on the internet.
It's higher than 89. It's higher than 95.
I'm looking it up, so someone's got to talk.
It's a number. It's higher than 97.
99.
Bingo.
Super
99
food.
99-cent store.
You work at the 99-cent store? That's not such a bad thing. I'm just shocked. And I can't believe how dumb I am that I couldn't guess it.
That's okay. The answers are before us.
You threw us off by saying a month ago that you had to be available at all times of the day, because that's rather misleading.
It would seem, but surprisingly, even though they're kind of like an 8 in the morning till 10 at night, they are 24/7. They're always stocking and reloading. So during the night, they have a full crew that stocks the store, and so they're ready. Because surprisingly, they have to rearrange all the aisles, clean everything up. All the stuff that people leave all over the place. They put those in grocery carts, like 20 or 30 of them, and they actually have to put that stuff up there. So, it's job security, but people are very messy and very lazy. So, we have to cover for all that.
Is it at the store that you used to frequent a lot to buy groceries?
I tried to get in that store, but that's a small one. I actually work at one of the, if you could call it a mega store. It's off of Pico and kind of Barrington, so it's very close to the West Side Pavilion or Westfield Mall.
Congratulations.
Over there. And thank you.
Those clues were way off.
I'm glad that you have a job. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of job. I'm just glad you have one. Go ahead, Ben.
You said the number was higher than 7, and it happens to be .99.
Oh, that's a very good technical point. Although most people call it the
Use something else, Ben.
But
by the way,
there
is a grocery store called Food for Less with the number 4 in it, so that's the only equivalent.
Right. There's also, of course, the Dollar Tree, although that's not really a number. But I think kind of going to the subject of what you guys, I think, were discussing is that I think the country will have a very interesting choice in a maybe a year or two if they don't seriously impeach the president, and that is you're going to have Trump is a businessman, and a lot of our problems financially, I hate to say it, but they're simply solved. Not all of them, but most of them are. And by that I mean there's just a lot of inefficiency. You can go to anyone's budget personally, and you can turn a person that's close to bankruptcy, you can turn a lot of their stuff around quickly. I mean, simple things. You can go like, do you go out to restaurants? We'll cut that out. Do you shop at 99? Okay, you'll save some money there. Do you pay for extra, check your phone service? Cut this or that. Cut your cable or stop spending frivolously at movies. Ride your bike instead of drive a car, et cetera, et cetera. And when you go to our budgets, it's very easy to go, I'll trim this, I'll trim that, and save 20%. Run it like a business. Politicians run it like it's a gravy train, like it's not their money. They don't care. So he can easily tweak 20 or 30% direction, or even 10%. So at the end of a year or so, you start going, we got a machine going, and people will have to decide, I think, at a point to go, efficiency is up, and we're launching into big business. Do we want to go back, even though this guy's annoying and he's a kind of a jerk? Or do you want to have really nice people that are social workers that don't know how to run a business? They run us into the ground. And that's going to be a tough decision unless the Democrats come up with a go-between. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't know how you guys think about that statement.
You can take that, Ben.
Okay, I'd go even deeper with it. Say we're successful. Say we're 3 years into Trump's presidency and things have skyrocketed in every field that's producing. I know in our country right now in the last 40 years there's been fields that don't produce anything. They just kind of recirculate money and kind of just siphon off of. I mean, there's lots of those, but the fields that are producing value, I think, are going to start skyrocketing. And how far do we want to go with that? That interested me, I guess it could be a worry, is that, yes, Trump opened up the Arctic water for drilling. And that's, I don't know, I'm kind of, yes, I like production. Yes, I use oil, so I can't say I'm against oil use. But I would just hate to see spills up there where it's breeding ground for things that can be extincted by us.
He's only been in office a year, so what development stage is the oil production up there in the Arctic? Like, do they already have all the rigging and stuff?
We're the most efficient movers and producers in the world. So if it's opened up, there's probably things already headed that way. I mean, we're not too far away in Alaska. I mean, there's rigs up there, and the operation is already there. So it's just a matter of setting it up, bringing the material up there and doing it. we're so good at it. That's what makes it kind of scary. Is that we'll be pulling oil like crazy out of there, and the weather is insane. The Arctic factor, there's just all kinds of factors that can cause a disaster. We've seen spills almost everywhere in the world, in every climate. So I would just hate to see that happen. We're not perfect.
Yeah, up here in Minnesota, there's the boundary waters, which is the area between Minnesota and Canada with a bunch of rivers and lakes that are untouched. You can't even ride a motorboat in some areas. And the Minnesota Republicans are trying to develop polymet mines, which is multiple mines of copper, nickel, and other stuff that would damage the boundary waters. And because the altitude is higher near Canada and the runoff would go down towards Duluth and Lake Superior, it could become a potential disaster.
Yeah. And there's got to be a balance somewhere, because where we're at right now is it's almost hard to do business because all of the dangers have been removed. It's like every potential for a danger, you have to pay somebody to come and check and see if you're dangerous, and then they have to get it cleared, and then you got to pay for the paperwork, and it's just ridiculous. But if you drop all of that, I mean, those programs might have
John's
been started.
back on the line. I'm sorry to interrupt. John's call dropped. Go ahead and continue. He's back on the air.
I'm just saying that we're swamped with regulations right now, and people are going to be happy to see some of the regulations out of the way of production. But what I'm saying is, if it's all dropped, then we have to relearn the reasons for those in the first place. I mean, a lot of the regulations were started because somebody got hurt or something failed or something spilled. And then it just got out of hand because a new organization was created. And every time you have that, you have 10 people watching one person work.
By the way, after you and John get done discussing this topic, I want to recap the article about Special Agent Larry Wooten and his role involved in investigating the incorrect things the feds did during the Bundy trial, including they even took gunshots at different protesters on the lot. John, are you available?
Oh, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, there was a little fuzziness, and my phone's acting up, so I hope you guys can hear me. But I think your call dropped briefly.
More stable, but unfortunately, but just kind of to follow up with the earlier statement is that, yes, I agree that myself, my personal philosophy is to live very simply. If we could even live as simple as the Amish, as Eskimos, as Indians, as the Aboriginals, as cultures or people who have lived for hundreds of years with minimal effect on the planet, I think that's the most ideal situation. The problem is half the world or more is not going back to that simpler time, and maybe they never will unless forced by either military or by nature itself. I think the one point to keep in mind, though, is that the world or the planet will be raped one way or another, whether it's from China or us or wherever. In this situation, at least we're getting the direct benefit of it as compared to, people will say, well, we need to not mine or drill for oil or whatever. We're going to take made in China at a third or a fourth the price, and we're going to have no jobs, and basically they're going to run the world. They'll have all the military strength, the tech, and the money, and they're going to take away all your freedom. China's working on a point system for this.
John, there are some problems, though. Like, there was that oil boom in North Dakota, and now it's pretty much over. Like, everybody went home. And then there's fracking in Oklahoma, where they've had minor earthquakes because of the way that they mine the oil down there.
Right. Well, to answer your question,
so even if we're trying to be self-sufficient and do it ourselves, it's creating side effects.
Well, let's consider your statement. Where are you going to buy your clothes from? Where are you going to buy your car? Are you actually living in a hut? Are you actually making your own clothes in the snow?
No.
Where are you buying your?
But,
where are you shopping at? Where do you go shopping? This Christmas, you bought things, right? Where did you go shopping?
Walmart.
It's a simple question. I'm not trying to be complicated.
I went to
Target. I went to
Walmart and JCPenney.
Okay, and on everything that you bought, 90% of it, where was it? Was it made in the USA?
Some things were from Walmart, but a lot of places were China, Thailand, Pakistan.
Okay. Well,
I really didn't buy that many clothes.
In China or some overseas place. So, using oil products to make this? Yeah. Are they? I mean, have we seen the air in China? Have we seen the working conditions? It's like it's going to be made.
We are in a global economy, but I think the earlier point you were trying to make was more valid about the potential. There's the Kyoto Protocol where all the advanced nations are involved in trying to use secure measures for safer cars and better exhaust systems. But then there are places, as you've mentioned in the past, like China, who they completely ignore all environmental standards and regulations and pretty much ruin it for anybody.
They're positioning themselves economic takeover.
Well, John, can I mention? Ben and I were.
Absolutely.
Ben, why don't you comment on that, and then we're going to go back to the Larry Wooten special agent thing that we started out with and couldn't finish.
Go for it.
All right. Yeah, I've tried this year. I think I was at around 60% of the gifts that I bought for people were from China. And I went to different places actually looking at the labels, and there's some ways. Sometimes you can't get around it. If you want a specific thing for a person, there isn't an option.
There isn't.
And
so the only way to change that is that someone like a Trump has to make it America is whatever you buy is made in a plant or a factory. If you're using electricity, oil, all these different chemicals to create these products. So unless we're going to not wear clothes or have a TV or drive a car, we're all part of it. And I'm not saying we're bad or China's bad. I'm just saying we all use this. So unless we all agree we're going to back up and we're going to, ride our bicycle and oil burning, like we're going to leave our stuff. We're going to live Amish or like Eskimos or something like that. It's not going to happen. So, I hate to see the effect, 100 years from now, but we're collectively, the point is, I'd rather have us be the controlling nation with the strength than to have the Russians or the Chinese, because they will do it. It's not an option. It's not, we can casually wait,
John, can you put yourself on speaker? Because you're fading.
Sure, absolutely. The point is, China will not go away nicely. We're in a very aggressive time, and we need someone strong. It doesn't have to be Trump, but someone needs to be a big dog, and we're going to have to be a strong country until we all agree that we're all going to, not the UN. I'm talking about people not.
Well, can I ask you a question about your geopolitical philosophy? It seems to me that you always think there's always a country out there that definitely wants to overrule us. Now, China has worked with us cooperatively, and we're their biggest importer. So, as we mentioned in an earlier show, the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement went down the tubes. That it wasn't even started by Obama, but he materialized it. That was a negative effect for Pacific Rim countries plus Australia. So I don't think China's trying to overtake us at this point in the sense that North Korea is. But if they lost the U.S. as a customer, they'd lose a lot of their power.
We are barely hanging on to have the dollar as the world currency. And we do actually make up for our inefficiency by being the controlling currency. So, like, if we lose 10 or 20%, we make it up by charging other countries. We because they use our currency. China is not nicely thinking about this. They are planning. they're planning to they're already negotiating with other countries to use their currency or a currency that they will agree upon that's not American. Who is helping Kim Jong-un? All China has to do is shut him down. They just have to say, knock it off. They're not. They're still sending stuff over to him. And the point is, I think you're really majorly underestimating what their objectives are. Their objectives have never changed. They want to control the world. They just changed from a communistic model to a capitalistic model, a capitalistic model using communist principles to guide it. But again, go to China and get on the internet and try to use free expression. They have a point system. They're creating what the ideal citizen will be. You get points for your money income, your status, your education, your skill, all these things, and it will give you a score, and that will determine who you are in their society. They plan in 2020 to make this online, to make this real. They have 740 million cameras. These cameras scan your face, your measurements. When you walk down the street, they know who you are. So when you ride through a red light on your bicycle, it'll flash on a screen at the intersection your face, and it'll say this is the third time you've run a red light, and they've ID'd you. Everyone knows.
How do you know this, John? Because I have a friend from Minnesota living there teaching English, and they give her free rent. Like, it can't be that bad. It's not as bad as Iran, where these people are taking to the streets and killing their own police officers.
For the last 2 years, we have a Chinese congregation that's used our facility. We did not charge them rent while they built a new facility. My pastor speaks there once every couple of months to the congregation. They still have people and missionaries over there, and they still tell them to this day, when you go visit, be very careful. Do not reveal all the people. Do not leave Bibles and things. Do not be very careful with your contacts, because once you leave, they will go and arrest. They will interrogate. They will track down all your contacts, and you're gone, and the press doesn't know about this stuff. And so I don't know where your information is from. I realize they live there, but the point is they get free rent. But have them try to talk about Jesus and about American lifestyle. Go on the internet and look up, see if they can start Facebook and talk about these things. I don't understand where your information, I just don't know where you're coming from.
What I was trying to ask you is, I didn't know that you got the information firsthand, but with all the million of people in China, it would seem unrealistic for me that people trap their image on a camera just to make sure they're not crossing the light correctly. Like, for me, that seems
everything I read on Facebook, but yes, they do, and I'm sure you're aware in North Korea, when you go over there to tourists, they take you to certain places. They watch what you do. If you take pictures, they will take your camera and inspect it. Information gets smuggled out. This is very common, knowledge. But again, with China,
I am aware of the security issues, but anyways, I have to make an announcement quick. John should be calling the show in soon, and I'm at work and I have to run to my car to get my meds. So could you and Ben handle the show until I get back in 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay, John and Ben.
We will now our station to the Trump Tower network. Go right ahead.
And then when I get back, I want to discuss the Larry Wooten memo that exposed the federal agents in the Bureau of Land Management problem with the Bundy investigation. Thank you. Anyway, I'll be right back. Take the show over till I get back.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, Ben, if you could bring me up to current on just the overview. I know some of the details, but I kind of mix things with 50 other stories I've seen on the news.
Well, the Wooten file just came out not too long ago, and that goes that's talking about what was said in the in the office, how things were conducted. There was a general hatred for Mormons for some reason. There was almost like a litmus test for people coming in that they cannot be Mormon and work there. Part of the Wooten file was bragging about, one of the agents bragged about getting 3 people to commit suicide in Utah, which if you go back and read the details that were written about the Operation Cerberus, 3 people did commit suicide that were in the sting operation. So to have an agent bragging about that, that's just unethical. And it was covered up after that by a superior that gave a good report from the guy.
I think you'll see more of that kind of, not less, but more of that behavior, because I think people are in a very competitive situation politically and in the world, even in the work environment. I was looking for employment, and I thank God for my job, but, truth be told, out of about, maybe close to 200 places, D99 there was me immediately, but it took a lot of work. And being as you go into a work situation where you were just told to go as fast as you can and to hustle and to do 5 things at the same time, for a basic job, a simple job. This isn't even rocket science. And it's just survival. If you don't perform, you don't have a job. And I think what happens is the best people in any society, and I'm good at it, and this employment goals or their mindset that makes them successful. And if you don't have a certain spiritual connect, like people in general, max them out, and they are wild dogs, and they blur the line. And I think that's what happens with these people.
Oh, okay. You were kind of cutting out, but I got most of that.
Yeah, just successful people. When you start winning and winning, there's a certain point where you overlook the moral issues with your success. If you make $1 million and you make it by raping the land, or you make it by cutting in front of 5 people in front of you, but you get to the top and you're rich and they're not, you justify your mindset, and pretty soon anything and everything and justifies the means. So I think that's the problem is with these people. They became very successful in a very secretive and powerful position, and their imagination went a little wild.
Right, but I think the bigger question about that, or my question with that would be, who's defining the word success? Because this is all tax money. This is technically a law enforcement agency that's doing undercover operations on civilians with our money.
Right. Well, I think one thing about money is that it's a form of power. So I think most all issues tend to go to power. Parents have the power over their children. The state has the power over the common worker, the police or the judge or the politician or the president. You think about, what do we talk about? We talk about president. We talk about our boss. We talk about the cop, that pulled us over and harassed us. The PSA agent at the airport. All this stuff is about power and that struggle for power. So I think what we run into is that how do we control power? How do we stop power from ruining us? And that's what you have in a lot of these situations with government, with CIA, with FBI, with black operations. Just people start to blur the line, and they can't come back to a moral place, because as long as they're getting ahead, it justifies their actions. It's really hard for them it's hard for them to question it when they're succeeding in that field that they want. Now, for me, success is doing the right thing in a moral way that is effective for the general population. Most people don't have that mindset. They're self-centered and they're not selfless. And so I understand the limitation of my mindset. It's not for most people. Society doesn't work that way. It's all about dog eat dog and get ahead. So I don't see a cure for that outside of the second coming of Christ, or the end of the world, or heaven, or Armageddon. I don't see a reckoning for that. Maybe I'm being over skeptical, but human history seems to dictate that.
I would hope that we have thousands more Wootens instead of Armageddon. But he blew the whistle, and I think he was fired. But the
I'm
question
back,
about
and John's on the line. Ben, go ahead with your summary, and then I'm going to add something to that. John, I'll pull you in a minute.
So I guess the question
Go ahead,
about the doctor that committed suicide, the Dr. Red, I think his name was. The one Indian bead is what ruined his life. Basically, they could do anything they wanted because he was guilty of having an Indian bead, which the actual value was $75. They claimed it to be over $1,000 value. One bead. And so I guess my question would be, why is the government treating an Indian bead, a native artifact, as government property? That's like the federal government does not own Native American. And the way the land is supposed to be between the federal government and natives is the natives are a sovereign nation, basically. And the way it is on the map, on the paperwork, is that Indian land is actually federal land. So that goes to the original question that the Bundys had, is why do we even need you guys anywhere near our ranch? We're doing all the work. You guys are just hassling us. So that's why it connects to all of that.
Can you guys tell me if you hear me better now? Or do you hear me better with speaker? I just put speaker on.
We can hear both. There's an echo, or I can hear an echo. So
okay, I'll
the
take
second
the
one would
speaker
be better.
Before I pull Don in, I want to mention something. So this Larry Wooten guy investigated the Bundy case for 2 years or so. He was removed from the Bundy Review in February of 2017 after raising several concerns. He said the BLM supervisors, without permission or notification, searched his office and seized notes, hard drive, case materials. Anyways, he said, I'm convinced that I was removed to prevent the ethical and proper further disclosure of severe misconduct. Much of Wooten's letter or memo revolved around allegations against Dan Love, the former BLM agent in charge of the cattle roundup. Love left the agency in September amid internal investigation. So anyways, Wooten alleges that the agents continually mocked the Bundy family, making fun of their Mormon faith, referred to them in vulgar and disparaging terms, and ridiculing women. He roughed up Clyde Bundy's son, grinding his face into the ground. They also had, he said Love's handling of the cattle roundup was overly aggressive. Love routinely ignored advice from the U.S. Attorney's Office and Nevada law enforcement to command the most intrusive, oppressive, large-scale, and militaristic trespass of cattle impound. I don't want to get into the whole thing because Ben hasn't memorized, but with that, I'm going to pull Don Gallimore in. Good evening, Don. Did you oversleep? Good evening, sleeping Don.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm sorry. Hey, guys. I was in family time pretty deep, and I forgot that we had changed the date, so I was negligent on that. I thank you for reminding me, Jane.
Even though you talked to me at 2 p.m. today?
Even though I talked to you at 2 p.m. today. So the discussion wasn't about necessarily the show. So the show was kind of a remembrance or an aftermath of our general conversation. So I'm here.
No problem.
Essentially, a lot of that just went on that I heard from John, and also then it was murky and broken up. So it was something that, I don't know if it's communication channels or if it's feed or whatever, but it's the show that I've heard thus far until you just your diatribe right there at the end was unclear. I just wanted to make that.
Well, John's phone has been fading in and out, and I asked him to go on speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, yours too, though, and it sounds like mine was too. Don, you sound great. I can hear every word.
I am great, so that's no problem. But
John revealed to us where he worked.
Okay, it was an unveiling. Okay, John, where is it?
It was the place that the center of all things money saving and life support, and that is 99-cent store.
Okay. Well, you're with a lot of people who have a lot of fun when they have fun.
Yeah.
The job, is it stressful?
Very, because I'm at one of the bigger, if you might call it a mega store. You know, they've got about 16 or 17 aisles, and they're long. Think what was, you know, a former Kmart or Target or something like that. It's a big store, a lot of floor space. So it is a meat grinder, and by that I mean if you take, say, a job at CVS or Walgreens, and maybe their markup, you know, you buy a $20 item, and you know maybe it costs them $10 or less. So they're making their money there. At the 99er, they're going to sell 20 items to get that same profit value. So you're doing 10 to 20 times more the work. It's all about volume, speed. So compared to a regular job, I mean, you really have to hustle for the store to make their money. So it's definitely been a challenge. And but I'm thankful I have a job. I'll tell you that.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just trying to hear the question, but yeah, it's been an adjustment as far as the flow of work, and it's good. I have the idea or the mindset that whatever comes your way is supposed to come your way. To deal with it or learn from it. Some things you can avoid, but usually when you run from something, it will follow you. So my attitude is just to bring it on and let's get it over with, you know, is my view on it.
Well, that's the way it should be, and it's a total departure from your last job where you were more or less you only had one boss. Well, you had the lady too, but your dog was your only boss. But having everybody. That's
a very good point. 30% of my time, the boss was, of course, crazy. The 70% of the time, the boss was my dog or her dog, and which means I was in control of the situation. So it was just enduring that 30% or 20% crazy, and that's why I held on to it as long as I could. I understood this concept. So, and to the point where it just was not possible to keep her together or stable. You know, when someone threatens to call the sheriff because they want you to, you know, buy things and donate it as a gift for their pet, you kind of get to the end of the line. But I will say that I replaced one crazy person with, you know, 500 crazy people because every other person in the store is, you know, they're stressed out. They're crazy. And that's life.
What's the most expensive thing in the store?
Well, you know, the dynamic of the store is changing because, as you know, inflation is inevitable. So you always knew, at least I always thought, it's like, what are they going to do in 10 years? How can you keep it a 99-cent store? So they get around with that by having $2.99, $4.99, $7.99, and so forth. So you're seeing a lot of like where it's now most items are 99 cents is kind of the slogan, and they're bringing in the stuff that you would see at Bed Bath & Beyond, you know, like shower curtains or blankets, comforters, shirts, even women's undergarments, you know, like bras and things that you would never expect. And the packaging on some things gets smaller, so instead of like 10 things in a box, you're getting like 3 things or, you know, 2. I always joke with the people and say, in a few years, it'll be known as the $99 store.
Well, I wouldn't want
inflation.
Half of a bra wouldn't do anybody any good.
Well, unless you're halfway through a transgender operation, maybe.
Good Lord.
Oh, man. Just taking a break halfway, huh?
It might be true.
Going back to the Wooten Bundy thing, my question, I guess, would be, as terrible as the government behavior was, in the case of suicide, were they actually loading the gun and handing it to people and making them shoot themselves or kill themselves? Or although obviously they were part of the situation, it just still seems to me the responsibility of suicide is with the person who kills themselves, you know. And I think that's kind of like escaping the issue.
The egregious part about it would be that the agent would joke in the office about getting 3 people to commit suicide in a laughing way. I guess that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
And who knows? Who knows? The official report said suicide on all 3 of them, but who knows? They have ultimate power and ultimate secrecy, so they could have all been murdered. Who knows?
Sure. No, I get that. And by the way, it doesn't mean I'm not sympathetic to suicide. I think I'm one of those people who has the wiring where given the right situation, I definitely would contemplate it. I probably would never do it, but I would seriously contemplate it as an option. As a human being, I always consider all options, positive and negative. And my conclusion always is that it's not a smart decision. It's because it doesn't resolve the issue. You know, it doesn't work through anything. It's avoidance. And to me, avoidance doesn't seem part of a logical situation. I just feel that considering all options, you can't make a logical decision until you've entertained all options. And when I walk through the concept of suicide, I go, this still doesn't resolve why I'm doing it. It's just trying to get away from a problem that will still exist after I'm dead, and then there'll be more problems, you know, including eternity. And family problems, you know, everyone that you bypass in that process.
Right.
Think of the people that we discussed earlier tonight in Iran and Syria. They don't even know where their next meal's coming from, or if their house is going to crumble the next day, or if the police are going to come in and gun them down. Just in America, people commit suicide because, you know, they didn't get their favorite item from Walmart. Well, they still have they still have as many complicated problems as the rest of the world, but it's really not realistic in comparison.
I mean, in our country, people kill themselves because they got bullied on Facebook, and I understand that. I understand that we're emotional people and we make stupid decisions. But on the other hand, you do kind of say, if in that evolutionist kind of philosophy, it's like, and that's Darwin at work. It's like, if you're of that weakness of mind that you'll kill yourself based on what other people think about you, then, you know, in a way, maybe you're not destined to be on the planet. Like, you have to have strength and belief in yourself. You have to block out all this negativity and criticism. But I am sympathetic to those who want to kill themselves. Definitely. There's a certain point where you have to say, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight for it. And if not, you're just not going to last long on this earth.
Survival instinct. Go ahead, Ben.
That's why the PC, the political correct speech thing has, and basically the explosion of snowflake. Not a lot of people like that term, but being a snowflake is just somebody who's overly sensitive, not afraid to get in somebody's face if they're offended by them. But that's not helping. I mean, our colleges are turning out soft people that can't handle reality. They can't handle a slap in the face verbally. It's becoming like a self-destructive nature to people because we're not hard and tough anymore. Look at the photographs from the Depression days. Those were some hard-faced, tough-looking people, and now you have people, you know, crying about stupid things in public or freaking out on somebody because they said a word that they didn't like. So I think people need to kind of just toughen up quite a bit. But having your life destroyed financially and in the court system, and that's a whole nother subject. You've destroyed somebody's entire life. That's a different subject.
One of the hardest things our culture is having to deal with is that we're trying to interpret constitutional laws and rules that were put together for a different mindset. And by that I mean, we really don't understand war, nor do we understand war on our own land. Even as recent as World War II or Vietnam or Korea, we've never had soldiers on our land fighting us, trying to take our country. So consider that the Patriots, they were fighting off the British, and not just fighting off an adversary, it was their own family, and not only that, it was a greater army. I mean, probably if the whole focus of England was to overtake us, they would have sent everyone over there and killed us all. But the point is, it was our land, or our forefathers' land, their homes, they were fighting for to defend on their own soil, and that created a certain strength and toughness that we don't know. We go to Iraq for a couple of years, and we, after 3 or 4 years, we're like, we don't want, this is too hard for us. We want to go home. We want to leave. That's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is you have to fight for your homeland and defend it, or your family and everyone will die or be raped. And that's a different mindset than our culture.
It's still there, Don?
Yes. My phone, I'm kind of cutting out a little bit. I'm walking through Yummy. I'm walking through Yummy store because they're open.
I have a comment about your Iran statement. First of all, it was our government that chose to go into Iran. I'm kind of an anti-war person. We don't really belong there. They did not have an established civil society to create a democracy. I don't think the measure of toughness is whether you want to stick it out in Iran. In Iraq. The country's in shambles. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that really a measure of toughness when people are forced to go there? They don't want to go there. It's a completely different environment with a different foreign language where they're subject to diseases and murders. I don't know. I guess the question is I may be wrong, but I would say 70 or 80% of everything you use or that you depend upon is based on oil or oil-based products or electricity, things that need energy. So when you have a crazy guy who thinks he's Nebuchadnezzar, the second king, that he's the new Babylon that will take over the world, because he also reads the Bible like we do, and he basically was able, he had the strongest military force to just, if he wanted to start to steamroll the other countries, go into Saudi Arabia, go into Iran, go into all these other places, and basically, or at least stranglehold the Persian Gulf, and basically we would be up the creek. So when the oil fields in Kuwait are burning, I do think, unfortunately, sadly, because we can't drill for oil over here, right, because of all our environmentalists, then yes, we have to go there and strong-arm them. I don't think there was an option. Okay, I understand whatever your decision to agree with the military leadership, but I thought we were talking about individual toughness and being able to overcome situations.
Well, it's combined with that because, again, we went over there to, yes, it was greedy, it was over oil, blood for oil, I get that. And the question is, one, are you willing to live in grass huts? And two, can you live in grass huts and not be overtaken by stronger governments in the world?
I don't think that's a fair question because, first of all, okay, I was born in 1960. There were cars when I was born. Anyone who was born after me in America, we have cars.
Right.
It's not our decision to measure bad military decisions against our lifestyle that exists. I don't think the blame should be put on the individual citizen for a country's decisions about. You were complaining about China 30 minutes ago. We've invaded Iran, Afghanistan. We've been a person who conducted raids in the former Yugoslavia and was part of the UN-controlled people there, which is probably more noble. But we've been just as destructive as other countries in trying to control and maintain their resources. That's not the individual citizen's fault. It's the military brass and the way that they've handled themselves.
Well, I half agree with you. However, again, you have to say, do you feel the world's in safe hands with the Bin Ladens or the Saddam Husseins or the Putins or the Kim Jong-uns of the world? You could say, yes, we are corrupt. Yes, and they, as just as much corrupt would they be nice and pleasant to the American people? Would they help us out? We could nuke off all these countries if that was our mindset. But what would they do to us and our soldiers and our people? I just don't see the connection there as far as apples to apples. Their mindset is totally different. Now, on the other hand,
I think you're talking about American exceptionalism, but my question is the worst people in China and the Middle East, aren't they just as bad as the worst people in the United States pulling the strings, orchestrating death and destruction through military service?
No, I don't, because apparently the people who have that mindset, I think they hate being American. I think they hate being white and successful. And they think there's something wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being who you are and being fair that let people do their thing. I mean, in Iraq, they can have free government, but how come they don't? Well, because there's a bunch of wild jihadists and terrorists and extremists in those cultures. And do we have crazy people? Yeah, but we do not endorse it in our clerics or in our temples or our churches. So I don't know. I think there's a hate America stigma or something that's been raised in liberalism that's just hates them. You know, if you understand where our country came from, we grabbed guns and we took our lives.
If there's anything I've learned in the last 7 years doing this show, investigating different subjects, is we have been as brutal. During Dwight D. Eisenhower, he gave the military. Dwight.
So you don't like America.
I'm in the furnace room right now. I hope you can hear me. Dwight D. Eisenhower gave the. Can you wait till I finish?
Oh yes,
Dwight D. Eisenhower gave the highest military commander in the army the right to invade and control Guatemala. The United Fruit Company in Guatemala killed people over bananas, basically, and built the bridges, controlled people, and paid them less than $1 a day to be in the banana plantations. We've done just as Don can verify me on this. We've done just as many mean things as all the other countries. We may be not we may not killed all the peasants like the Russians did, but there has been suppression everywhere around the world to different degrees. Don or Ben, could you?
So basically what you're saying is the American government is just as guilty as killing 100 million of their own people and starving them, or that when you say what you're going to say right now, after the show, they're going to arrest you and put you in prison, or that or they'll behead you, or have a public ceremony showing that, like in North Korea, where you'll get executed in front of everyone. Is that the comparison you're making?
No, yes. But go ahead. Don, I'd appreciate if someone else weighs in to defend me, but I do feel guilty for every banana I ate from age 3 to 18. Because I contributed to blood and death.
Okay.
Well, so does looking at movies. That the way they're produced, they're pretty much killing people. They're child molesters, pedophiles. They do things that are terrible, and people still look at movies. This is a subject that I've been pretty quiet because. First of all, I came in late. I don't know what we're talking about in general, but we are the biggest warmonger since the Roman Empire. So I don't know what conceivably be a discussion. It must be of degrees of a heinous crime the United States perpetrated all over the world. So this is something that this discussion is kind of beyond me, because that part really is. There's no question that we are a hawkish warmonger state.
Well, the question that I would pose to you is: there's 3 superpowers.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yes.
There's 3 superpowers in the world: United States, China, and Russia. Now, I understand there's other countries that have substantial resources, but those are the 3 bigs. Certainly the 3 bigs with the military and history of killing people. And the question would be, China, if left unchecked, if you eliminated the United States and Russia, China would go and take the Philippines, Japan, Korea, North Korea, They'd go across Asia and keep on going until someone would stop them, which no one can. Russia, again, unchecked, would take Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia. They'll go into France, take England, why not, and continue until someone, I'm talking from a historical basis. This is how it works, whether it's the Persian Empire, Babylonian, the Grecian, the Roman, the Mongolian. It's just how life is. So then the evil country number 3 is the United States. So again, of the 3 places, someone has to do this bad, dirty business. Someone has to do it. Do you want those other 2 countries, or do you want the United States way of dealing? And if you say, well, we shouldn't do it at all, what were the options? What is your alternative country to live in? Sweden, Denmark, or New Zealand?
Well, what's happening right now is that, first of all, China is slowly taking over anyway. That's why they're increasing their international waters. They're making sure that the Bay of South China Sea is theirs. They're trying to get Guam, Okinawa closed. They also are trying to really do things in Indonesia with the expansion of gambling. They can go farther in Indonesia. They've already controlled. So we're talking about natural progression anyway. Now, whether we want to intervene in those places and stretch our finance in is really a question that, our president, our current administration is vacillating on whether we should spend more money, which they've done on defense, or take more money from the people and things like that, which they're trying to do with tax reform. So we're talking about there's not an equal liberal here.
Right. So to ask the question just nicely and simply, of the 3 countries that you would want to live under their evil empire of bad history and exploiting the world, do you choose China? I know without a big explanation, do you choose China, Russia, or the United States? And number 2, the follow-up question, what country model would you want to follow, and how is that practical the situation? For example, you would say Norway has the best thing, or Sweden has the best education, or whatever it is, France, their political structure, and how does that control the balance of power with the evil empires that we have? And I'm trying not to be meaning or hypercritical. I'm just trying to say from an honest perspective, like a reality perspective. Of the 3, which one do you choose? Do you choose China? Yes or no? Russia? Yes or no? United States? Yes or no? And 2, what is your country model that you would use to help the world?
The one that the United States Democratic model is for us right now is the best model that there is. So it's like choosing between Donald and Hillary, which is the worst piece of shit.
Well, less review.
That's an easy one for me.
The model that we've got is a good model if you can subtract the humanistic factor of greed.
Yeah.
Greed throws everything out of the water because it destroys instead of creates. Everything, one of the cities that have been biggest hit by economic crises are those that have lost all of their mercantile and manufacturing. So those are the cities that have been left with abandoned buildings and all kinds of other things that the cities couldn't take on. It taxed their taxpayers. They're paying for those buildings sitting there vacant and broken glass and a nice. So a dichotomy that is really it needs to be set straight because it's totally off balance based on the fact that greed overrides, supersedes the workings of the machinations of the economy with industry, the economy plus industry. That's just the real deal. We've got to straighten out our industry so that we can make progress in goals that need us to look forward in the future.
And what country model do you think we could use, though, besides our own? In Europe or Asia or anywhere that would be better than what we're doing now. I mean, taking out the greed and the evil of men, but just as far as a system, is ours the best system?
Right.
As far as
right now, the closest system that I would see as semi-optimal is the Canadian system. They are, except for the fact that they are polluters and poachers, and they do things very, very wilderness-like. Their general system of semi-democracy mixed with a little socialism kind of works. Everybody's happy, doing their own thing. They're in a sort of freedom. You live up there, Ben. You live up there, Ben. You know that those people are just kind of wild animals.
No, actually, they're turning snowflake. They're turning to be a liberal snowflake-run country, which in no time they're going to be straight up communist.
Right. Well, and that's I'm saying when I put that in, I put it in the context country now that would be an semi-ideal place to live.
Right.
They're not.
That model.
You don't, Ben. Do you understand the lack of stress that they've got? You should. You're up there. I travel there. I used to travel there considerably, but the stress level when you have two things. You have universal health care, and you also have the non-threat of militaristic activity. Those things calm you down to a point where you are almost African. You don't have to worry about it. Just answer the question, what's the only country that legalizes weapons, that legalizes guns? That's that. That's a stress.
Exactly. But here's a question, though, to direct to that point. See, I think that living as the Amish or the Indians or Eskimos or Aboriginals or whatever peaceful groups is optimum. We should all live in the Garden of Eden. But here's the point. The reality is, why are those cultures not? Do you want the Amish in charge of the planet? You go, no. How come? Because you can rape them, you can steal them and kill them, and they will actually say, it's okay, I forgive you. Again, with the Indians used to own this land. Why don't they own it? Because we kicked their ass and we raped them. And it's terrible because I'm part Indian. But the point of the thing is, the system. It's like these people who are survivalists, where they have this beautiful gardens, and they've got water systems, and they have all these things to live independently, and have no weapons to defend themselves. Armies will come in and take their water and their survival food, and kick them out. It's like, so all I'm saying is, yes, they have all these resources because they spend their money on education and health and all this stuff. They don't contribute to the world defense. And to me, it's like not having security cop or having police or having a lock on your doors. It's almost negligent, and it's irresponsible to the planet. Someone has to be the cop, and that means dirty work if you're a cop.
I know, John. I don't lock my door. I don't see anything wrong with a peaceful, loving society like that. We're the only ones who allow gun ownership in the world.
My door is not only unlocked, it's my door is open. In fact, it's open half of today. Sometimes I leave with the door open and unlocked. But I'm saying I also live in a closed, gated community on the west side. I'm sure one day you'll see in the news that I got robbed or killed. But the point being is that doesn't work in East LA or in Central. It doesn't work at the 99-cent store. I gave $100 change to someone, and they didn't come back and say, "Oh, you made a mistake."
Right,
that's not what the real world we're living in.
I wanted to get to your question, Don. Was you painted this scenario that I have to answer the question, but it's flawed. The way that you asked the question is totally irrelevant, because Canada and all the other socialist countries that are supposedly successful socialism are living under somebody's wing. They don't carry their own shield. They don't have any kind of backbone at all, and they're not on the front lines of anything. So they're allowed to do all these little programs and waste money because they don't have to spend money keeping themselves alive. They spend it on social things instead. Now, if say you remove the United States and Canada bordered Mexico, do you think they'd be the same that they are right now? Or do you think they would have to militarize their border?
Of course not, but not with Mexico. In
it doesn't matter.
Substitution.
Anything.
Yeah.
In the European, who's on the front lines in Europe? How about Poland? There's a big difference between the way Poland does business and the way Norway does business.
Right. So what's your point? For the most part, the Canadians are being bombarded by 3 different cultures that are inundating their set of districts. Whatever they call them, doggone it. I just had a brain freeze. They're 5 provinces. But
I think the point of what he was raising is that it's impractical and illogical to have the U.S. uninvolved and to have the U.S. be an innocent, totally play it by the rules, be an honest and fair country when you're dealing with people that don't play by the same rules. I mean, it's the same as the environment. We're trying to compete with countries that disregard environmental rules, and we're getting crucified. So when you get into war and into black operations, and I'm not saying I like this stuff. I'm just saying it's the reality. How do you eliminate reality?
No,
people are evil.
Right.
People are corrupt.
I'm just saying ideal because Canada's being inundated by 50 million different cultures that can come in there because of the ease. But for the most part, I like stress-free living. I don't worry about a damn thing. I'm my own boss in everything that I do. I depend on myself, and just like John said, I depend on me and with my family. But just like you said earlier in the show, you have to be strong for yourself. As an individual, I don't have a boss. Nobody tells me what to do because if they do, I know they're wrong. First of all, and the other thing is that the main thing is that I know that there are things that I'm being undervalued, and I don't like that.
Right. Well, you mentioned something about we are the only country that allows firearms. That's not going away. It can't. I don't want to see our country turn into Honduras or Mexico because Mexico doesn't allow firearms either. How many people are shot every single day in Mexico anyway?
With U.S. guns, just like in Syria.
No, it's not U.S. guns. No, guns are manufactured. No, guns are manufactured all over South America. There's Brazil, Argentina, they manufacture. If we quit, they won't. They come from everywhere.
Our guns are in South Africa. Our guns are in Syria. Our guns are in Iran. Our guns are in Afghanistan. Our guns are in Turkey.
So the only option you would have to get rid of guns here, or the only thing you get rid of is the legality of it.
Well, that's where I'm talking about the greed concept comes in. It's because greed overshadows. It knocks the formula of idyllic life out the window. And that's the problem.
Here's a question. It's 1760 something, and we're sitting around and we don't have guns, and we want to have a country. What happens? Do we ask the British, will you please just leave us alone and go away and talk to the Indians, and will you please just let us settle and do our stuff? I mean, the reality is that people took guns and took their land and defended it. Right or wrong.
The reality is that the Constitution said explicitly that the gun ownership was relegated to the militia. You had to go through a licensing, testing, land ownership.
Really.
You had to get
the militia at the time. No, you didn't. Well, you had to go through training during war, but the militia was every able-bodied person. That's everybody.
You guys,
landowner.
we have a caller.
Only the landowner.
We have a guest.
Only the landowner.
I hate to have neglected you all, but I'm upstairs. I was upstairs at work, and we have a caller from the 848. So I'm going to pull. He or she's been waiting since before the 90-minute cutoff. So I'm going to bring him in.
Happy New
Hi,
Year.
this is Jane from Blog Talk Radio. Who is this?
Hi, Jane. This is Mike in New York. I've called in before. I've been on your show before. But I hear a lot of chatter, like a lot of distortion.
Mike, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody.
How's it going?
I'm doing okay. Getting a little bit frustrated with the conversation here, guys. You have to understand, I don't deal. I mean, I'm in my 60s now, and I don't deal in utopian views and dreams and wouldn't it be nice if. I've been a gun collector for over 50 years. There's a reality. There's something that a lot of people, they repeat things that they learn from the media and from the anti-gunners regarding the Second Amendment, but they don't really study into terminology, what words, how words were used, what their meanings were back when the Second Amendment was written, and really get into it, get in the Federalist Papers, really start learning that well-regulated had a different meaning than what it does today. And a lot of these meanings and everything, they've changed over years. But the way it's written, if you look into the text and understand what the intent was and what it meant when it was written, then you get it. Then there's no wiggle room. Well, it means this and that. Look, we're not rewriting it. It says what it says. Now, the utopian views about wouldn't it be nice if there weren't any guns and the evil countries and all that stuff, I'll tell you what, it's human nature will never be legislated. And worldwide, the people that are out there, it's never going to be Disneyland. And people don't want to acknowledge that. They think they could live their lives and it's going to be with the rainbows and the unicorns, and it will never be that way. And until you're realistic about it and face it, and I think I mentioned on your show before, if somebody goes through something like a war zone or go through a disaster like I was in the Northridge earthquake and saw firsthand how people act, read a simple book from when you were a kid called Lord of the Flies. Take a look at really what human nature is like and when it comes down to it. I mean, during the earthquake, we had gang members looting while people were home. It wasn't on the news. I saw it firsthand. And what stopped it in our neighborhood? Guns. We tried calling the police. The police, finally we got through. They couldn't come out to us. They told us that. The cop asked me on the phone, can you defend yourself? I said, yes. He said, do what you have to do and call us when you're finished. Do you understand? There's a reality that hurts. So we can dream all we want and say, yes, it should be, and wouldn't it be nice if, and everything, but that's all Disneyland. It's not the reality.
Well, Mike, I'm so glad that you feel that way, and I'm sure that a great many people feel that way. And I really hope that 99% of the people in the world feel that way, because I'm the 1% who has had it. I've purchased every house that I purchased. I make sure that I'm in a neighborhood or an area that I'm safe, and I don't have any problems. If I'm going to be the person who oversees what goes on in the neighborhood, that's fine with me. And everything is smooth. I don't worry about it.
But you're hiding from it.
I don't worry about that.
You're hiding, so you don't have to worry about it.
No, I'm out there because I think that I'm stronger than any gun.
Right.
I believe
that's great. I tell you, see, I don't hide from it. I've got a full carry permit in New York State, which I'll tell you is involved. So they look into your background. I'm down in Westchester County, right near Manhattan. So getting a full carry is no easy job. And every day I carry a 1911. So my background is spotless.
I don't allow guns in my house.
I allow reality in my life, and I'm the same as having a fire extinguisher. Is there a possibility for a fire in the house? Yes, there is. And is there a possibility for evil in this world? Yes. And I mean, I carry concealed, and it's always there with me.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
If you do,
but
then
you know something? If I'm about to get mugged, he's not going to show up and save me. I have to save myself. It's up to me to protect myself and my family. I'm very, very objective about it, man. I'm not a dreamer, and and you have to learn that.
The question was when what I felt about a government at this time. That was my ideal thought. In reality, you're right. There is a necessity for some kind of protection that you have, and that's one of the reasons I strongly suggest the kids get some kind of bodily defense.
Get the training, learn, don't be afraid of firearms, get the training, know what you're doing with it, and I mean, you're fine. And God forbid you ever have to pull that weapon out. But to defend yourself or anything, but I mean, I've had full carry for years, and only twice I've come close to having carry. But I mean, it's a huge responsibility. But I mean, am I safe with my family or anything? Absolutely. I have no problem. Even in spite of what's out there in the world. And it's a lot better than carrying a bottle of holy water.
Can I call a timeout real quick? Hey,
sure.
Hey, Jane, is there anything that could be causing an echo from your setup? Do you have two phones going right now?
You guys were too busy talking. I think it might be my phone acting up, and I put myself on mute, and I can't fix it right now because if I hang up, the whole show's gonna cut off. It's after 90 minutes, so there's nothing I can do but keep myself on mute. So my announcement is I'm going to do a conclusion, but that's it. There's nothing I can do to fix the problem. And John, I hope you're on speaker still because your phone was doing weird stuff too.
Yeah, I've got another phone that's more consistent. However, it was acting up tonight, so I took the path of least resistance, and it was either a phone that cuts off every 10 minutes or this phone. So I'm grateful to have the conversation we did. I would echo the sentiments of the gun-carrying caller, and that is just myself. I don't have a gun. I don't carry. I probably wouldn't because I feel that I probably would end up either using it on myself or someone I love. But that being said, I wouldn't want to live in a country where we don't have police and we don't have fellow neighbors that are armed and ready to defend. And if this world gets a little darker, well, actually, my brother does carry, so we're good to go. But between reality and the fantasy that we're in a safe world and that the United States needs to sit back and just be a good UN member, I think that we have to be proactive, and it's our responsibility to. Or we can be a really nice country that is very into themselves and is just a non-influence and will get taken over. I just see that as a historical reality, and I'd rather bet on being heavy than on lightening up and being wrong, because there's just too much at stake with the planet. And I would just leave it at that, and anyone can comment off of that if they'd like.
All right. Yeah, I agree. This is not the place that a lot of people wish it could be. When you're talking about, Norway, Sweden, and stuff like that, England, a lot of people that would like to argue that we shouldn't have our right to carry. Coming from England, that it really does not make sense. They've lost their country. I mean, they can lose it completely within 5 years because nobody's armed. Nobody's got the fighting spirit. Nobody would defend their house. How could they? The cops don't even carry guns. It's just they're at the will of whatever happens to them. I went out shooting today, and just to have a reason to clean them all. But why is there such an interest if the right to carry is such a bad thing? Why do the people that go out and go shooting get millions of views on YouTube? Why is there such an interest in it?
Well, they basically.
I have the answer to that, Ben. Because people equate freedom and self-will with carrying a gun. They think it's the last standoff between them and the government.
That's not true.
I wouldn't agree with that either. And I carry all the time. No, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, well, I think, for some people it's different, but for someone like me who lived in Boyle Heights, East LA, and the second night I lived there, there were 16 shots against the neighbor's wall, and there was a murder 10 days later that I witnessed. I've never carried a gun, and I've never thought about carrying one, because Jesus said who lives by the sword dies by the sword, but for all the the people who are advocating for guns, in their eyes, they find it absolutely necessary to be a gun owner. So that's their thing. It's not mine.
Oh, that's, you know, if somebody's afraid of guns right off the bat, I mean, they'll interpret and whatever they have to do to justify their feelings about it. People are afraid of guns. The media's really turned them into, I mean, there's the anti-gun sentiment out there. To tell you the honest to God truth, it should be they should point the blame at the government because the government, in the name of a buck, created this problem in the late 40s, if you really look at it. And it's not the gun. It's the people that have really changed, because society, what they did was they shut down the asylums. And because the federal government was subsidizing the states were paying incredible amounts of money for all of these huge asylums. So late 40s, they started shutting them down. And then there was even a larger push where they said, we're not being humanitarian. We have to be considerate. Oh, we're progressive now. All these poor people, they're living institutionalized. Let them live with the people in society. Let them live among us. Yes, we can make sure they live among us. And they started shutting down the asylums and putting the lunatics out in society. And as a perfect example of this, look up an article in 2013 that came out in the New York Post here in New York that said, "Here come the crazies." That's the title of it. And that's where Governor Cuomo cut loose 4,000 or 5,000 lunatics from institutions and let them go out and live in society. And psychiatrists came out and told the state, there's no one who's going to watch them now, and some of these people are psychopaths, to make sure they're medicated. The state didn't care. They're saving millions.
What does that have to do with gun ownership? What does that have to do with gun ownership?
Here, right here. Now, what happens is the lunatics start committing these crimes, we had it in New York, they were pushing people off train platforms. They were getting guns like the guy after Newtown that took there and he had a gun, an illegal gun, and he was a lunatic, and he was nuts. He had killed his grandmother, knifed her to death, and he took a gun and shot at the police, killed a fireman and some ambulance workers and everything. Look at how many people now, psychiatric patients, lunatics, do these mass shootings and everything. They don't get the help that they need. Instead, they live among us. The kid from Newtown, he was nuts. Was he in an institution? No. He was living home with his mother. That's what it has to do with guns. When you have them in society, now you're blaming the gun instead of blaming it's insanity. It's the people that are at fault, and the government is the one who set that up by shutting down the institutions instead of putting them in and getting them the help they need. So, but nobody wants to blame the people that need mental illness. They don't want to say, well, it's mental illness, and it is.
Also, just to interject, I totally agree with your points, because they never really go over the psychological or the medical history of the shooters. I mean, they usually centralize the gun aspect of it rather than the psychological or the medical condition of the person. But I think just as big as an issue is addressing what Jane stated, because her stand is basically from a Christian to consider with that. Because I've had 3 points to this, and that is one.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, you're fading out and cutting. We lost you. I'm muting myself in between when I talk.
John, we can't hear you, but I do want to. Is your first name Michael, by the way?
Yeah, I'm Mike from New York.
Yeah, Mike. I remember who you are. John's call job. You're forgetting one thing, Mike, because I work in the disabled field. A lot of disabled people and other types of people with mental illnesses used to be institutionalized, and then they were moved into group home settings and given rights and education and stuff. I'm talking about disabled and mentally ill. You have to realize that sometimes it's society itself that creates the mental illness, like the craziness of the world. You can't just blame it on the fact that somebody wasn't locked up. Like, it's either an external problem or an internal problem. And not everybody can be locked up. Just like John Hinckley, who killed Lennon. You can't control everybody. Like guns are dangerous, and people misuse them all the time, even if they're half crazy.
So are cars. So are everyone. But I'll tell you what. Back in the 1800s, when the mentally ill, the patients would get put into asylums. We stopped that. And just like that article said, when you cut thousands,
but they don't belong in asylums. They're not going to get better in asylums.
Then maybe
asylums are outdated.
The system tries doing a one-shot deal, a cure-all that applies to everybody, and it doesn't. It takes work. You have to sort out the real psychopaths, the lunatics, the ones who are dangerous to themselves and others in society, and keep them out. Instead, now the police departments and the jails are full of these people. The criminals.
But what if someone just goes crazy and let Don or Ben talk? They've been on the air a long time. Somebody else go.
I'll say something. I recommend listening to a radio call. It's on YouTube, and it was the kid that committed the Newtown massacre. He called into a radio show and gave this long story about I think it was a gorilla or a monkey, some sort. Maybe it was a chimp or something that was raised by a woman, like a single child, in a home. The chimp was used to the daily activities, but one time it got really aggressive, and I don't remember exactly how the story goes, so I won't try to say the whole thing. But the way the kid is speaking, he's sympathizing with the actions of. It's almost like he hated people from an animalistic point of view. So that's really interesting. If you guys wanted to hear the inside mind of that kid, I can't remember his name here, but it's on YouTube. There's a radio call that he called in and talked about that. Another thing is the Aurora shooters. There were memoirs from them. The one guy was kind of the brains of the operation, but he was a psychopath. He wanted to destroy the entire earth. He wanted to kill every living human, and he wrote it down. I mean, this could have been discovered. I mean, before the political correct stuff, none of these people snapped overnight. The ones who commit these mass murders, this isn't just an act of snapping. They've got a history. And it's been proven. They've got a long history. And instead of the neighbors or the relatives saying, this guy needs help, put him away. Well, we want to be compassionate. We have to be understanding. Well, okay, now we pay the price for that. How many times have you heard where the police were called to somebody's house and the guy acted like a nut and everything, and you see it afterwards? Then what happens with it? I mean, look at the mass murder in Bath, Michigan. Where that was the highest number of children that were ever killed in a school. And that was what, in the 1920s? And the guy used dynamite. The guy was nuts. He murdered his wife and blew up the school with the kids in it. I mean, every single instance of this, it always comes down to...
That's a concrete case, but last week we talked about Dan Shaver getting killed, a 26-year-old exterminator in the southwest United States by a mean, crazy cop. And there's people built within the institution, too, that kill. It's not just an outsider.
We're talking the mass murders, but now we're jumping to individual murders. But now that's a whole different thing, where they always blame and they really go after the gun and the NRA's fault. Oh, the mass murders. Oh, the shooting, 10 dead here, 20 dead here. Not just a cop goes rogue and because it has anger issues and shoots one person. Did that policeman shoot did he shoot 10, 15 people? No. You're talking a different thing.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. No. The Newtown tragedy was really bad. I mean, it was just so I can't believe that guy even did that and what satisfaction he could get out of it. It was just terrible.
They all are.
Hey, guys.
All of these mass murders.
I'm going to get ready to go to bed
John?
now. I'm getting ready to go to bed now.
Okay, it's okay. Good night, Don.
You guys
Good night,
enjoy your
Don.
talk.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, and that's all I'm talking about is peace, love, and happiness. And peace on
All
earth.
the best in 2018.
That's all.
Love
that's
you,
all
Don. Bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye.
Don.
Ben and Mike, we should do our conclusions, but go ahead, Ben, with what you were going to say.
Okay, I said Aurora earlier. I was actually talking about the Littleton, Colorado, the Columbine School. That's the one.
Right.
The kid had all those memoirs. The Aurora was a different story. That dude was a crazy college genius, but
right, he was a grad student.
Right, he was his IQ was probably up above 130 or 140, but he obviously had an evil streak and was either damaged by medication or in need of medication, and that's why I like Jordan Peterson. He breaks down the psychology, and I think the best way that he's broken it down can fit into one lecture. It was in his Cain and Abel lecture, because he gets into the psychology of somebody who thinks like Cain and the psychology of somebody that thinks like Abel. And that can be applied to almost every case. Every mass murderer, every evil person, everybody that takes liberty from somebody or takes somebody's life or takes somebody's stereo is all connected to that same Cain and Abel mentality. You either fall one way and you take personal responsibility for yourself and you have success because you're a worker, or you blame the system, you steal, and you take something that's not yours and you're angry about your results and you blame society, the system, you blame God. That's the whole divide between the two ways of thinking.
That was very well put, Ben. Way to go. There's just so much to consider here in these types of topics. But all I know is that the prevalence of gun has caused more murders. And the only example I can use as an exception is in Norway, where the police don't carry guns. There was that one teenager camp incident when one guy just went nuts and killed all those people. But that was an isolated incident over probably in the last 25 years in Norway. And people suffer less there because there is such a less presence of guns.
Okay,
spoken by a true liberal.
I got a simple question about Norway then. What was life like in World War II for Norway?
They were invaded by the Germans, and they had to fight to survive. It was pretty rough.
Right. So why doesn't Norway speak German now?
Because
of the States.
Because they fought off the Germans and the Allies helped them.
The Allies were dependent on the U.S. The Allies wouldn't have been anything without the
I understand your point, but even after World War II and all that hardship and the occupation of the Nazis, they chose to not have a gun-toting society.
Guns are not illegal. They're not illegal in Norway. You can own guns. I'm looking at it right now. I looked up to make sure the laws are strict, but it's perfectly legal. You can apply for it. You get a permit and everything else. And you also have to look at the amount of the population. You can't say, well, the population of Norway compared with the United States. No, there's a different percentage. They're a fraction.
Right.
So, I mean, how many people, the amount of the population, I wonder how many millions are there? I don't even know what the population compared with what we have here in the U.S. I don't know it's
right. And we are multinational, multicultural. Everything is thrown into one area.
Here we go, right here. Here's a breakdown. Guns per 100 residents. In the U.S., we have 101 firearms per 100 residents. In Norway, it's 31.3, but they have a smaller population. So it's not like they don't exist. They exist. But it's easier people like to put a little compartment there and in their mind and say, yes, but I'm right because, well, no, it's not reality, unfortunately. And Norway, you know, there were factories producing. They had their own version of a 1911, highly collectible. And they had Craigs. You know, the Craig Jorgensen? It was very popular up there. And I mean, they were, Craig. Right, 30-40 Craig. I mean, and those rifles and everything, they still exist. As a matter of fact, I've got a Danish 30-40 Craig that I was speaking with a collector in Norway to try to get an original stock for it. That's a Nazi marked one that was captured when the Germans overran Denmark, and they found it in storage, and they took them all back, and they reworked them and reissued them to police and rear echelon units. These people, if they don't know enough about it, it's really frustrating for someone that's into firearms like I am to sit back. It's like, oh, here we go. But by the same token, if the government came to me and said, Mike, how would you like to be in charge of security for the nuclear power plants in the United States? I don't know anything about nuclear fission. I wouldn't even want to give an opinion on it. But that doesn't stop people that don't know anything about guns, except two things. There's a trigger and the bullet comes out that hole. But all of a sudden, everybody out there in the media's done it.
The whole point is we're not exactly gun advocates on this show. At least I'm not.
Right.
I am.
But I am at work, guys. I'm at work. I'm stepping away for 10 minutes. I would like to do my conclusion now in case you guys end the episode.
Okay, I hope you're not ending the show because we're pro-gun. I hope that's not the case.
I'm not ending the show, but I have to go personally, but Ben can end it for me. I'm giving him authority.
Okay, cool.
I want to make a brief paragraph statement, though. Tonight we discussed, when Mike first came on the show, he talked about ideological cleavage and people with normative views of the world where they're just advocating for their fishbowl world where they want everything the way they want it to be. Well, I do think people have choices, and by their actions they have choices. So whatever you're advocating for, which is whether it's gun control, gun ownership, or advocacy for the mentally ill, I've been doing this research project for 25 years on the priests who burn draft cards regarding the Milwaukee 14. They went and raided the draft board office and burned the draft cards across the street at a war memorial park. Well, I just want to read one quote by this priest from the script. That's from the actual script of their trial. And then I'm just gonna cut out, and you guys can finish the show. My name is Father James Harney. A little background might help. For the first 29 years of my life, I passed through different phases. The Second World War was only a memory to me. When I was 10 years old, I could hear people using the term, "The Reds have invaded Korea." I grew up watching war movies, which I was very impressed by. You know, the great way that our country was able to outwit the Germans. I desired very much to become part of the military, possibly join the Marines. I was a very average American. After finishing high school, I went to St. John's Seminary, and I started to get some kind of philosophical background into what it means to be a human being and what it means to be living in this moment in history. My ideas started to change quite radically precisely because I began to see what it means to be a human being and the utter beauty to be alive. I'm almost done. I was very privileged to be in the seminary when Pope John Paul came to be Pope. Pope John became Pope. The tremendous hope that he was able to give to mankind, the beautiful encyclicals that he gave trying to guide mankind into the future. The old governments were obsolete. We had to go beyond national governments and live as a community in the world. Along with Pope John, there was the idea of Martin Luther King and his tremendous idea that truth would win out in the end. I saw what black people had to go through. Just the fact of going into a restaurant and sitting down with a white person was literally breaking the law. And I thought saw what it was doing to my conscience. It was helping me to come alive to what was happening in our country. So I'm going to stop there, and what I'm going to say is that based on our earlier discussion on Iran and their pending revolution protests, that eventually institutions break down, whether it's the government or a religious theocracy, and people make changes in their lives and they assert their identity. Sometimes it's through silent protests or verbal protests or marching in the street. In the case in Iran, they killed a few cops. But we all have to see ourselves in a perspective of the world and what we're trying to advocate for. And everybody has a cherished sense of belief about the things that are important to them. And I hope this episode tonight is reflective on what people believe in. And with that, I'll end my conclusion.
That was a good one.
All right, and Happy New Year, and God bless, and good luck to all of us in 2018.
Okay, Mike and Ben, do you want to continue, or should I end the show?
Yeah,
it's up to you.
Sure, I'll continue for a while.
You guys can keep going. Right. I don't care.
Okay, all righty.
Yeah, I wanted to say
Go ahead.
something. Okay, since I value my right to defend my household, and if it came to it, I would defend my community. If it came to it, I would defend my country.
Right.
Since I have kids, I'm not going to volunteer I'm not going to volunteer to go to another country to defend country here. If it comes to me, damn right. But
right.
I don't like the fact that the Democratic Party imports. Well, that's kind of a callous thing to say, but most immigrants vote Democrat. And the Democratic Party, the power comes from the word democracy, which they teach everybody that comes here. So the anti-gun, the disarmament, the social programs, everything's free mentality is trying to attack the republic. And so since I value guns and I understand that there's a danger of mass voting my rights away, that's why I cling to this is a republic. And I have the proof sitting on my dashboard. I carry the Constitution that says exactly what we are and what we're not. We're not a democracy. So
right.
I guess that's why when these utopian conversations come up, it's always the left side versus the right side. It's never starting from the center as what the Constitution says.
No,
so,
they're not based in reality. They're dreaming. And it's frustrating to, and I could see their point. Wouldn't it be nice if it's great to dream, but that's not the real world. And you're never going to survive like that. Millions of ministers and who knows how many people have volunteered to go into the deep jungles. They've ended up in the pot and eaten by the cannibals thanks to those attitudes. And I'm not going to join them, man. I mean, that was, well, God will take care of us. You take care of yourself. God's there. There's absolutely there, but to be a dreamer and to ignore reality, and and I mentioned it. I think I was on this show last time, and I mentioned that I've seen the liberals change their attitudes, even about guns. I've seen rabid anti-gun fanatics change their opinions and within a matter of hours. When the real world comes knocking on their door and comes to their dining room table, that's the epiphany hits. Then all of a sudden they change.
Right. It's called red pill. When somebody finally realizes
my God,
what they're living in.
Yep. And the Northridge quake, I mean, a week or two before it, I had a neighbor that I got into an argument with. He was a rabid liberal, and he said that you're a gun owner. You're part of the plague on the United States, on American society. You're a plague on it. You're part of the problem in this country. You gun owners, you NRA people, you blah, 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 blah. All right. Well, when the Northridge quake hit and Mexican gangs started coming through, how do you know they were Mexican? They could have been. Well, They got barbed wire and they got sayings tattooed on MS-13 and tattooed on them. And go for it, dude. You tell me what I saw. And they were in the back of pickup trucks coming through the neighborhood, looting people's homes while they were home. And this guy came over to my house, knocked on my door, and asked if he could borrow a gun. And I said, "You're the one that called me a plague on society. Now look at you. Look at you." And I said, "You know nothing about firearms. You don't know anything about gun safety, and you expect me to give you an ammunition and a gun? Are you nuts?" And I'm not doing this just because we get into the argument. You don't know anything about gun safety. I don't want you close to my house with a firearm and you don't even know what you're doing with it. No, I'm not going to give you anything. But
right,
what a change in attitude.
I like to compare that to somebody who, like, when I was younger, I used to be really afraid to use a table saw. I mean, I would see that thing and I would hear the stories and I would see people with missing fingers saying, "You got to be careful." And I just developed this fear until the point where I was paid and told to rip something on the table saw. And so, okay, that's my job now. Now I have to do it. And you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But I don't remember when that was. It must have been young because I've been using a table saw for a long time. I can do all the tricky stuff. I can do this, take the guard off, and I know my table saw well, and I know how fast it can throw something back at you. But
it's a tool.
It's a tool. It's just, I mean, there's people. If you don't use a table saw, it's easy to be afraid of it and just to hate the stupid thing.
Yep.
But once you need it, like I do, I use a table saw probably 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes all day long. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. I know it can cut my fingers off if I'm not careful, but I know how to.
Yeah, it's paranoia. It's people are just, and the media is really fed into that paranoia. They've got these people worked up in a frenzy, and New York State is like California. It's brutal. I mean, I just saw a video. They interviewed a guy who was arrested at JFK for having an empty magazine, charged with a felony, and put in jail. Cost him $12,000 or $15,000 in legal fees.
Wow.
But it wasn't a gun. It was empty. It was a magazine. Well, yes, but in New York State, if you have the magazine, you can be charged for. It's unbelievable. Common sense doesn't even apply. And the people that are out there, since it doesn't affect them, they don't care. So I've told people before, you know what? I mean, I lied. I don't ski. I know how to ski. And said, but I've heard a lot of stories. I mean, look at Sonny Bono. How many people get killed every year on skis? I think we should outlaw skiing. I think we should cut back on some of these resorts. It affects the environment. Pardon me?
It's not a fair comparison when you're talking about guns and any other thing that kills lots of people. I mean, there's not the same hatred for vehicles or alcohol.
I mean, no, but I look at it. I mean, guns. It's a sporting tool. It's a firearm that's used for sporting. If you misuse it, same as like a car or something else, there are problems. But the one solution solves all things. That's not the way to handle it. But they don't want to hear that. They're afraid of even the image of it freaks people out, and it's a shame.
In about 10 minutes, you can usually tell the people that you would not want to have a firearm. People that can't control their emotions, or people that get belligerently drunk way too many times a week, probably shouldn't even have a firearm, because especially the people that are out of touch with. People that'll make a scene in, not needed. There's people out there that I would not want to have the firearms, but that's why
emotionally balanced.
Right. And a lot of them are on the left. That's why you see a lot of these attacks. They happen to be from the left. There's not a whole lot of constitutional originalist type of people that are doing these attacks. I don't know if there's any.
No, I see a spoiled attitude that's out there where society is really, and these like the Antifa ones, where they're screaming and yelling and just like, what are you doing? But they misjudged because they have no idea about the silent majority that's out here, and about all of us that are out here, and it drives them nuts when they saw like Trump get voted in. They go insane now. because they realize, oh my God, there is a silent majority, and they are out there. Yes, they are. And the more you act up, the more they're going to vote. So
well, the more we bury our head in the sand, the left is good at grouping together. They think as the whole, the community, the block thinking, and the right is full of individuals that, you might get together with people a few times a year, but you basically live your life as an individual and come back to your family every day.
Right.
But a lot of these people are career scholars, and they're going and being formed into these radical groups with our tax dollars, and that's going to come to an end once we've realized what we've done. We've allowed them an option besides work.
Yeah, I think it's ending now. I think we're seeing a lot of the changes, and it's driving them nuts. I mean, that stack and pack deal that they've got working out in California, where they're trying to outlaw use or limit the use of motor vehicles in like San Diego and San Francisco, and it grew by leaps and bounds under Obama, but now it's grinding to a halt. They're losing their funding, and it's driving them nuts. And I've heard them screaming about it already, saying that Trump is ruining everything, all the work that we did, all the progress that we made. That's progress. They're oblivious to the reality. They're going to end up with Detroit. They did it before, and then what do when they poison the water and they ruin an area? They move to another state to do it over there. Well, let's try it again over here. We'll do it better this time. It's a sick joke. It's scary. And I've seen here in New York.
The fire in California is destroying the rural areas. It's actually, they probably won't rebuild. They'll probably be put into the stack and pack rat race. And that's the entire point. They want your car to have a tracker on it. They want you to pay for the mileage everywhere you go. They want body scanners at all the public transportation. That's their ideal system. That's part of the Agenda 21 is condense all the cities, condense them as highly populated as you can and easily corridorable, and
controllable.
Remove the rural living completely. That's why all the ranchers are dropping like flies. That's why the housing market doesn't help the rural areas.
And once it tanks and the population starts, because they'll leave, and then the money starts drying up. And the best thing you can do, the worst thing for them, best thing you can do to a liberal or any of their policies, remove the funding. When the money disappears, they're finished. Then they have nothing. And it always works like that. Once the money's gone, they're done. So, I don't know. It's the world we live in right now. I mean, I'm glad I'm not going to be around 200 years from now. Who knows what it's going to look like out there. But one thing I have noticed is there was a lot of apathy, especially here in New York. And this is, I'm a half hour north of Mordor, man. I'm close to it. So New York City, the mentality down there is unreal. But the apathy is changing. Now people are starting to get angry, and they're realizing that this crap doesn't work, and they don't trust one of the biggest enemies that we have is the media. The misinformation and the stuff that the media comes out with is just, and I know this for a fact because of what I do for a living. I just spoke with a whole bunch of soldiers that, I'm a government contractor, and I was talking with a bunch of guys that just spent 3 months in Puerto Rico. And one of the master sergeants told me that, and he's not Republican, Democrat, whatever. He's middle of the road. And he said, Mike, he said, it's part of America. I said, yeah. He said, but the politicians and the people act and treat it like it's a third world country. He said, the problems in Puerto Rico, it's their fault. And he said, but they're blaming the federal government, saying that Trump and the government haven't done enough. He said, it's their fault. They have the resources over there. They have no clue what to do with them. He said, we saw trailer trucks loaded with supplies that sat there for weeks because they had drivers, but nobody in the government would direct them onto where to take the supplies, where the supplies were needed.
Who were the drivers under? The Union. Who was the Union? Democratic.
No, that was besides the Union ones. These were National Guard, Puerto Rican National Guard under the government. And who's the government? Democrats. Again, incompetence in office. And what's the easiest for them to do? Deflect it. Oh, it's Trump's fault. Yes, that's the sentiment out there. Let's blame Trump. That's it. Oh, yeah. And it's not true. It was them. The stories that they were telling me, I sat there, listen, would you hear that on the news? No. But I'm hearing it from the people that saw it firsthand. They said there was a casino. They drove by it every day, and it was the parking lot was packed. They thought the government was using it as a distribution center. So they pulled in. They figured, let's check this thing out. They walked in, and the casino was humming. Packed. People gambling all over. They started, one lady they recognized, they went over to talk to her. She said, well, I take the FEMA money, and I spend $200-300 a day in here in the casino, and then I go back, I get more money from FEMA, and are you kidding?
By the way, the show's cutting off in 2 minutes, you guys. I'm just warning you.
All right.
Okay.
So there's a reality.
It was scheduled for 90 minutes. We've got 2 hours and a half.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Well,
okay,
I'm about.
So, Ben, do you want to say good night
really.
or something?
I thought we lost you. I thought you went to bed on us.
No, I'm at work. I stepped away.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I work.
Happy New Year, and Ben,
I do an overnight shift.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I'll do a conclusion for John. China is not evil.
Okay.
You missed the early.
Yeah, I missed
We're
it.
all evil. Okay, but Ben, do you have a quick conclusion? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was good to hear from you again, Mike. That was a good talk.
Oh. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I hope everybody has the best year of their life this year.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Mine will. If Jesus comes back, it'll be good.
I'm
Just
not ready
kidding.
for that yet.
Okay. Thanks for calling in, Mike.